¿Qué tal, gente? ¿Cómo están? ¿Todo bien? Espero que sí. El día de hoy finalmente puedo compartir con ustedes uno de los videos que más esperé hacer, que esperé compartir. Terminar de editarlo, terminar de traducirlo, de finalmente poder publicarlo para todos. Me la pasé brutal haciendo este video. Ha sido una de las pláticas más entretenidas, interesantes y más que nada enriquecedoras que he tenido en mi vida. Y creo que es una muy buena oportunidad para compartirlo con ustedes, que dejen sus comentarios en la parte de abajo y poder hacer esto una mesa redonda con un invitado muy especial que tenemos en el canal. Este invitado, nada más y nada menos, uno de los creadores de Counter-Strike, tal cual. Fueron dos creadores, finales de los 90s, inicio de los 2000s. Estamos hablando de Ming Lim y de Cliffy. Estas dos personas son responsables de haber creado tal cual Counter-Strike, de haber creado el mod de Half-Life en su tiempo. Como pueden imaginar, para mí es sumamente importante tener a uno de estos invitados, que en este caso va a ser Ming Lee, alias Guzman, nombre que para los conocedores, vaya que sonarán por ahí algunas campanas. Espero que les guste un montón este video y disfrútenlo, así como lo he hecho yo. Well, guys, today I'm with Mr. Guzman, one of the creators of Counter-Strike. First of all, man, you know, like putting any question aside, thank you to, open this door, like to keep like this opportunity for me, for my people to know you, to know your background, basically to be super friendly and opening the situation and this opportunity to me. How are you, man?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me. It's always nice to chat with the community and people who play Counter Strike. It's yeah, I'm pretty busy, but sometimes I'd like to take time out and just kind of like yeah, just like you know uh, get connected with just people that are part of the Counter Strike community. So yeah, it's really nice to be here. hmm
Well, even if you are super busy, you
hmm
were really friendly with me and put me like an opening and everything. So that's
Yeah.
not that doesn't happen really often. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Oh, it's good to meet you, man.
Hey, good
Yeah.
to meet you, man. So,
Yeah.
listen, I have some questions. I'm not
hmm
planning to being like super cliche or trying to make a controversy or anything like that. I'm really respecting our conversation. First of all, um, going back to those days, to
hmm
the end of the '90s, early 2000s,
Yeah.
what inspired you to create Counter-Strike? It was another game, a gameplay that you wanted, but it didn't really happen in any other games. What was that
Mm-hmm.
factor that inspired you to create CS?
Yeah, so basically, I guess I was 18 or 19 at the time, and I played a lot of games. I was playing games ever since I was 8 years old. So, I was playing games. So I was playing games like Rainbow Six and Quake. So I played all of the FPS games that kind of came out in the early 90s. So I guess the first one was like Wolfenstein. So
Right.
basically, I played Wolfenstein, and then after that it was Doom, and then like there was a bunch of other games similar to Doom, like Duke Nukem, Shadow Warriors,
Right.
and all that. So I mean, at the time, back in the early '90s, there wasn't a lot of games that were released. So we had like myself, I had a lot of time to play them all. Like whereas today, there's like 1,000 new games every week. So you don't have the opportunity to get to play every single game, and so back then games were kind of few and far between. So I was able to play pretty much every game that was kind of released, and there was very few games that I was unable to kind of really play to the full extent. So
Right.
so I was really kind of exposed to every type of genre. Like I even played like RPG games
Hmm.
back in the day. There was a game called Ultima, so I played a lot of that.
Totally.
Yeah, and so I played all types of games like RPGs, flight simulator games. Like back then in the early '90s, there was actually a lot more flight sims, like compared to now. Whereas the flight simulator games, they're kind of like they're very hard, like they're kind of niche. Like I mean, you have games like War Thunder, but those are more casual flight sims. Like back in the
Yep.
early '90s, we had like some really hardcore flight sims that required you to read like a huge like manual, like
Right.
300 page
Right.
instruction book. I don't know if you experienced that, but back then the flight sim games were super realistic, and I really enjoyed that. So I was really super interested in like military stuff and like military technology, like like fighter jets and tanks and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And so it was kind of like a natural evolution for me to get involved, like to get interested in like counterterrorism and then like like SWAT units and that kind of thing. So I think as I started to play like Rainbow Six and I started to watch more movies like that had a lot of that featured a lot of cool counterterrorists in it, it kind of like it really inspired me to make Counter Strike. And so
Right.
that was really my starting point, and just that interest that sparked my motivation to create Counter Strike was really just kind of spawned from there. When after I played Half Life,
Hmm.
I kind of saw the engine. I was like, wow, this game, like because it took place in a realistic environment, and I kind of saw the potential to kind of take that environment and kind of just add some like counter terrorist elements to it. And because at the time I was kind of like deciding between making a mod for the Quake engine or the Half-Life engine. And
Right.
so when I saw the Half-Life engine, I already saw like the graphics in Half-Life, and they were kind of closer to what I wanted Counter-Strike to look like. Whereas the graphics in Quake, it was very, it was, I don't know if you saw the early Quake 1 days, but
Yeah.
it was very, I guess you would say like medieval, kind of like fantasy kind of thing. So
Yeah, kind of.
so it would require me a lot of work to kind of just change the look of Quake to make it look like Counter Strike. So it was it was kind of an easy decision for me to just choose Half Life. And so when the Half Life SDK was released.
Hmm.
So the SDK is basically the toolkit that allows modders to kind of modify the game.
Right.
So I remember Valve, they released the SDK pretty soon after Half-Life release. So I think it was like 6 months after the release of Half-Life. And then Valve released this toolkit, and then I kind of just jumped on it, and then I just kind of like tinkered around with it. And so when I started working on the Half-Life SDK, I actually had a lot of experience working on mods before, because actually I worked on mods for like Doom and Quake
Yeah.
and Quake 2. So I already had a lot of experience making mods. So when the Half-Life SDK came out, I kind of I was it kind of it was pretty easy for me to pick up, because actually Half-Life, the engine actually was based off of the Quake engine. So
Hmm.
sorry, it was based off the Quake 2. No, it was based off the Quake 1 engine. So a lot of the details of the Half-Life engine were familiar with me, because I actually already worked on the Quake 1 engine. So that's why I was able to make the Counter-Strike, like I was able to make the first version of Counter-Strike pretty quickly, because I was familiar with the engine from my time working with Quake. So I think it took me like 8 months, like maybe, I think, yeah, about 8 months to a year to make like the very first like kind of like prototype of Counter-Strike. And
Okay.
so at the time, it was just basically a few guns and like two character models. Like I had the terrorists and I had the counter terrorists, and I just had like maybe 6 or 7 guns. And I didn't have any maps though, so basically I was basically just using this map from, um,
Hey, sorry to
yeah,
interrupt you. I think I
yeah,
remember
sure,
I checked that prototype, of course,
mm,
the one that is public, and let
yeah.
me know if I'm mistaken, but I think it was like this kind of Half-Life map that you were just testing the mechanics on
Yeah,
it,
yeah, exactly.
right?
It was a Half-Life map. Yes, you're right, exactly. So it was basically just a Half-Life map, and I just basically used it to test the like the game, like the weapon, the feel of the weapons, and just the
Yeah.
player movement. Like so, the player movement for Counter Strike was pretty much similar to Half Life, anyways. So I think all I did was I basically just reduced the player speeds, because Half Life, the character in Half-Life, he would move kind of fast.
Hmm.
So I think I just kind of toned it down, try to make it a bit more realistic. I think the biggest change was just to make the weapons, like to kind of make the weapons have kind of a more interesting spread mechanic, and also have like an interesting kick mechanic. So I think
Right.
that was pretty much just the biggest challenge for me. And so I think once I created that prototype, I created this really ugly website, and I kind of put it on the internet.
Yeah.
And I think at that time, Jess Cliffy, who actually worked with a previous mod that I had worked on called Action Quake 2. So he was kind of familiar with my work, and he kind of saw the page that I made for Counter Strike, and he saw it and he said, "Wow, that's a really interesting project." And so he approached me, and he basically wanted to get involved with a project, and basically that's how I was introduced to Cliffy. Because basically he was a curator. He was a curator for all of these cool
Oh,
maps
okay. Makes sense.
for all of these maps for Action Quake 2. And so he approached me and he said, I can get you in contact with a lot of mappers from the Action Quake 2 community, and I can convince them to make some maps for Counter-Strike. And so I said, yeah, for sure, because at the time I had no experience making maps. So I could do everything. I can do the programming, I can do the create the weapons and the characters, but creating the maps was completely out of my comfort zone. And
Yeah.
so I basically said that was great, because in that way I can just let the community kind of help me create the maps, and I can just focus on just making the gameplay mechanics,
Right.
the weapons and that kind of thing. So then basically from that point on, we basically worked out as a team. And so Cliffy would kind of handle just basically setting up the web page, maintaining the web page, acting as a community manager for all of the level designers to submit their maps. And then
Right.
he would kind of like filter out all of the ones that had potential. And then together we would kind of review them and kind of look over them and just kind of decide, okay, yeah, this is a cool map, and that was a cool map. And so that was a really cool time period for me, because we would kind of like it was really exciting, because every time we got like a new submission of maps, I was like super excited to check them out. I was like, yeah, let's see what
Right.
the community cooked up. And so it was exciting. So then we would just play test these new maps that people would kind of submit to us, and then we would just have to decide which ones to include in the next version of Counter Strike. And so some of them like I really liked, but then some of them Cliffy didn't like. So then we would have to come to an agreement on which ones to include. So there was
Right.
a few maps that never really made the cut, and some maps that I thought were really cool, but unfortunately, like it didn't really get included in the
Yeah,
in
like you
the
guys didn't probably had this link of opinion, right? Like you liked
Yeah,
it,
there was.
he didn't
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, I think I'm for the most part, I'm pretty happy with the ones that we both ended up agreeing on. So there were some really cool maps back in the day, like I mean, CS Siege, like CS Facility. I don't know if you're familiar with a map called Facility.
I think
Basically,
so. In a
yeah, it
project that I
was.
downloaded,
Yeah,
I think it was right there.
yeah, it was basically a rip-off of a GoldenEye map.
Oh,
So
I
it
didn't
was
know that.
basically there's a map in the game GoldenEye 64. It was called Facility, and it
Okay.
took place in this kind of like this underground bunker or something, like a nuclear facility.
Right.
And like that was actually one of my favorite maps, because I think we came up with the bomb diffuser idea around beta 4 or
How
beta
many
3.
betas, like this out of the script, but how many
Oh,
betas were in the
yeah.
game?
So there was so I think there was like up to eight betas. So
Jesus.
it was up to eight betas. But between those eight, we had like sub betas. Like we had like beta 5.1, beta 5.2 kind of thing. I
Right.
don't know why we came up with that naming convention. I think we changed the beta numbers when we thought that we made enough big changes to consider it a new beta 6 or something. But yeah, so I think in total we probably had like 12 betas. Yeah, but I think officially it only went up to
Wow.
beta 8 or something.
Oh, awesome.
My
So yeah,
my
it's
internet
super
think
cool
that.
that you are actually correcting me in how yes, Cliffy is right. The name, the
Yeah,
second name is called, it is pronounced Cliffy.
yeah.
I used to be mistaken, even though I made like a whole kind of short documentary about Counter Strike some months ago, and I named you and I named Yes Clive, which is
Okay,
mistaken,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's totally mistaken.
Totally totally. I've never heard that. I mean, I heard him called Cliff. Like I mean, just Cliff.
Right.
But I called him Cliffy. Yeah, Cliffy.
Oh,
Yeah,
Cliffy, awesome. So I know
yeah,
how
yeah.
it works. You are
Yeah.
actually, well, I was born in 96, so
Hmm.
I didn't really experience the beginning of this. And if I
Yeah.
did, it was more like my father did, right? He was,
Oh, okay,
yeah,
cool.
really into Quake and all that
Oh,
stuff. I
yeah.
was researching, well, I've been researching for months about you, about the development of Counter-Strike and everything. And I found that you were involved into Quake modding a lot, like from ID Software. Like you
Oh, yeah.
were
Yeah.
really involved into the engine, and at
Yeah.
least for me, I know that Source Gold, and all those
Hmm.
engines, like
Hmm.
from the past and from Valve, actually
Hmm.
come inspired from Quake.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yep, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, because the source engine was actually like basically it was just a modified version of the Quake engine. So
Right.
they took the Quake engine and they just added a bunch of new features, such as skeletal animation and scripting, which would allow them to create like the events in Half-Life.
Uh-huh.
So basically, it was a lot of it was based off of the Quake 2 engine. Yeah. So or was it the Quake 1 engine? I can't remember if it was the Quake 1 or the Quake 2 that they was based off. So anyways, it was one of them. But yeah, I was heavily involved in the Quake 2 modding scene. And also, so actually, before I worked on Counter-Strike, I worked on a game called Navy SEALs for Quake.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like a single player mod that I worked on for Quake 1. And so actually that was probably my first mod. So that was like my first time learning how to create a mod, and so I had to learn how to write the code in. So at the time they used a language called Quake C, which is
Mm-hmm.
basically it's kind of like a derivative of the C language.
Yeah.
So what I did was I found this other mod called Action Quake. So it was called Action Quake 2. And so when I found this, I was like, whoa, this game is awesome. And so I basically approached that team and I said, hey, I love your mod. Can I like contribute to it? So I offered to make a lot of their guns. So I made a lot
Yeah.
of their weapon models for Action Quake 2. And so they were really happy with that. And they was like, yeah, this is cool because I think their weapon models were kind of lame. So I don't want to like like bash anybody, but
Right.
I just thought that I could improve upon it. So they were like totally interested, and they were like, yeah, man, we love your weapon models. And so then it was a very easy collaboration. So basically, for about a year, I think, or a year and a half. So I worked with this team called the Action Quake team, and we just worked on this mod, Action Quake 2.
All these projects gave you a lot of experience, which is insanely cool because at the same time
Yeah.
you were working kind of in a known ground, let's say,
Mhm.
because it was kind of similar to
Mhm.
Source, so it was easier, quote unquote, to go into the development of Counter
Yeah.
Strike basing
Yeah.
in Half Life.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Talking
Yeah.
about the development, how was this design process,
Mhm.
with CS? Like models, scripting, like what was the structure to
Mhm.
mod Half-Life into CS? Like where you
Mhm.
started, all that
Mhm. Yeah.
stuff.
Right. So the first thing I did was I didn't touch any of the code. So what I did was I created all of the models first. So
Okay.
so that took the longest time. So creating the models was very time consuming. It took me
Oof.
like 6 or 7 months. So basically, I just created the character models for the counter terrorists and then for the terrorists. And I remember back at that time, the very first models that I made, people were complaining because they looked so similar.
Right.
So yeah, if you actually Google the first models for the Counter Strike Beta 1, like they look exactly the same except the terrorists they have like no sleeves.
Right.
So I think
Right.
that was the
Right.
only difference. But people were complaining that they looked so similar and they had trouble. There was a lot of friendly fire basically. So so I ended up
Yeah.
having to change that eventually. But so yeah, so I just created those character models and also I created the weapon models as well. So I remember at the time I used the program. It was in 3D Studios Max because at the time I was really quite an amateur, and so I didn't really have access to any professional tools. But
Okay. Yeah.
there was a community program that allowed people to create models. I think it was called the Swiss Army Knife. It was called Cork Swiss Army Knife,
Okay.
I think, or something like that. But anyways, it was a pretty primitive tool, and it had a pretty difficult user interface. And I remember back then it was really hard to make models because of this interface was quite slow, and it took me like I think it took me like a month just to make like one weapon model and to animate.
Wow,
Yeah, I mean,
that's
well,
incredible.
part of it was because I was kind of I was an amateur. I wasn't really good, so that was one thing, and also the tools were kind of shitty. So yeah, I was really kind of slow, and plus the model at the end product didn't even look that nice. So yeah, it was a very time consuming process making the models for the first Counter Strike. Once I finished all the models, I started programming the game, and programming it was actually pretty quick. I think it took me like 2 months, I think, to program the initial prototype because
Right.
uh, all I had to do was I just basically just tweak the movement, the player movement, just tweak that a little bit, and basically just write some code for the weapons, like the gun, the
Yeah.
recoil, and the spread. And so basically that didn't take too long actually. And I think the game mode, I think the game mode we had like the hostage rescue. So that was the only game mode we had for the first version. And so what I did was I used the hostage. I used like the scientists from Half-Life.
Yeah.
I used them as hostages.
I
And so
remember.
basically I would just take their code. So I think I just took their AI code and I just kind of modified it a bit so then that they would follow the player. And I remember it had like a lot of bugs. Like you can jump on their heads and you can just like
Oh yeah, yeah.
you can hop up to the sky because like I think Half-Life because originally Half-Life didn't really allow players to jump that high. And anyways, there was like so a lot of the code for for the scientists they weren't really intended for like a multiplayer game like Counter Strike.
Yeah.
So it had a lot of weird bugs like that. So those are funny though. I mean, it was really funny. So basically, yeah, I was able to program the first prototype in a couple months. And so I think from the time the SDK was released to the time I finished the first prototype, it was about a year.
Talking about Cliffy, I know you talked to me about some roles and like what tasks or whatever everybody was doing. But in short words and in a short explanation, what you did in Counter Strike and what Cliffy did, like what were your roles specifically?
So I think I was basically responsible for creating the game mechanics
Right.
and like just coming up with the game like the mission modes and basically just kind of doing all of the programming and creating the 3D models for the characters and the weapons. And Cliffy was responsible for the community management of the level designers. So he would basically he was the one that would communicate with all of the level designers
Oh,
and basically kind of tell them, okay, so we need the levels to look like this, or we need the levels to, this level's too big, or this level, it has too many, it's too complicated or something. So we had our own like Counter Strike chat forum, and it was a live forum, like 24/7 live. I would
yeah.
log on every so often, and I would chat directly with the players, and they would give me feedback, and they would say that you suck or something like that. And it was really awesome though because before every time we released a new version of Counter Strike, we would always go to we would always release it on the IRC chat forums,
Yeah.
and it was so much excitement because there was so much excitement building up. So on that day, when right before we shipped it, there would be like thousands of people on the chat on the chat forums, and we had to like mute them all because obviously it was like a wall of spam. I don't know. It's
That's so
like
cool, man.
yeah, it was so awesome. And as soon as we released the game, we would unmute everything, and then all
Yeah,
the
right,
spam
right.
would just
The
go.
whole print, it will
Yeah,
just
yeah,
go in
yeah,
one
yeah,
millisecond.
exactly. It's like like Twitch, how you see all the spam. So
Yeah.
that was it was awesome. That was like the first kind of like live way of interacting with your community.
Well, let's focus into the gameplay. Let's say,
Yeah.
what is the most important mechanic that you spend time on? Like, let's say this mechanic, spray patterns,
Yeah.
movement, netcode. What was this factor or this mechanic that you spend most of your time?
Yeah, for me, I think it was definitely I spent most of it on just uh getting the weapon feel right. Like I wanted the
Oh,
weapons to feel like just kind of realistic, but not so realistic, but kind of fun at the same time. And I wanted to kind of differentiate the weapons from each other. So
the feeling of the gunplay
yeah.
itself, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
so
yeah,
it feels
exactly.
original, it feels solid.
Yeah, it feels
Yeah.
fun and it just feels, yeah, exactly. I was just hugely on the gunplay. Because the game mechanics for like the mission modes, I didn't really spend too much time on them because, to be honest, they were pretty simple. I mean, like hostage rescue, I spawned the hostages, and I didn't really spend too much time trying to like make that too balanced out. And so I think I think that's part of the reason why hostage rescue never really became so popular, because it
Yeah.
was kind of unbalanced. Yeah.
Yeah, if we focus into like today, right, in today's version of the game, what's something or what's that thing that you will have to change that you probably don't like that much and you think it needs a change? If you focus on CSGO or Counter-Strike 2, what's that thing that needs to be changed in CS?
Yeah, so I mean, aside from the skins thing, I mean, I think there was a few things that I felt in Counter Strike I didn't have the opportunity to fix
Yeah,
before the community became so used to it. Like for example, I'll give you one example. The fact that one team can buy like ops, like the entire team can have an op. I think that's not a good game mechanic. I
all
kind of
right.
felt like I should have I should have had a way of limiting the use of certain guns, like kind of like a supply. Like if one team buys too many ops, like the shop has run out of ops, you can't buy any
Yeah,
more ops. Something like that, kind of like a game mechanic to kind of limit some of the more powerful guns like the op.
I like that.
Uh, so I think if we introduced that from the very get-go, like from before, I think it would have been more accepted. But now, because players are so used to having like being able to buy any gun anytime, I think it's just hard to introduce that mechanic. But I think that was my biggest regret, is not being able, not balancing out some of the weapon shop a bit better.
How many hours you put into CS before it was given to Valve? Like, let's say years,
Oh,
months.
yeah.
How much time
Okay.
did you put into it?
So I think so. The first beta one took mm, about a year.
All right.
And so that was part-time hours. I would probably work around 30 hours a week on that. So 30 hours a week, over the course of a year, you can do the math. I'm not good at that.
Me neither.
So that would be beta one. And then so after beta one, it took us, I think, 4 months to do
Right.
beta two. And so each beta, between beta one, beta two, beta three, it was like 4 months, I think. Yeah, 4 to 3 months. Some of them were a bit quicker. So I think it was around before. So after beta four, that's when Valve approached me. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
So once we released beta four, Valve approached us and said, "Hey, let's get together. We want to make this an official. We want to like get work with you on official capacity. Maybe like yeah, 2 years, a little bit less than two
Oh,
years.
it was
Yeah,
not
2 years.
that long. It was a good
No.
amount of time. Then
Yeah.
you joined them like an
Yes.
official
Yes.
employee, let's
Yes.
say, right?
They were
How
very
was it?
generous. Like, oh, they were super nice. Well, first I was like super excited when they first contacted me, because I was like huge fans of them, obviously. And so I was like, whoa, they wanna talk to me. And then so basically, I was living in Vancouver, and so they were in Seattle, which is like a 2-hour drive.
Yeah.
So then they basically just drove up to Vancouver to meet me. And
Okay.
yeah, so at the time I was actually working at another company. So I was actually part-time working at this other company because I was in school still, but uh, I was also working part-time at this company called Barking Dog Studios, which is kind of
Yeah.
like it was a small game company in Vancouver. And we were actually working on this game, like a competitor to Counter-Strike, actually. Because the reason Barking Dog Studios hired me was because they were big fans of Counter-Strike. And so they say, hey, we want to hire you to work on this other game, which is called, it was called Global Operations. And so this was supposed to be a competitor to the Counter-Strike. So it was kind of weird. So I was basically working at this company called Barking Dog Studios, and then Valve contacts me and says, "Hey, we want to work with you on Counter Strike." Because while I was working at Barking Dog Studios, I was still working on Counter Strike. But once Valve contacted me, they knew that I was working for Barking Dog Studios, and they said, "Hey, hey, listen, we wanna basically, the first thing they wanted to do is they wanted to buy the rights for Counter Strike
Right.
off of me, right? So off of me and Cliffy, and so that was the first step they did. And so once they did that, one of the requirements of that was that they had to let Barking Dog Studios work on Counter Strike Beta 5. So
Oh, okay.
basically, they hired Barking Dog Studios to work on Beta 5 with me. So while I was working at Barking Dog, I would then be working on Counter Strike Beta 5 at Barking Dog Studio. So then basically we came to the agreement, and I said, yeah, let's do this. And so I worked with Barking Dog on Beta 5. Unfortunately, after Beta 5, Valve decided to not work with Barking Dog anymore, and they wanted to just continue to work on Counter Strike on their own at Valve.
Like in
So
house, right?
basically, yeah, in house at Valve. So basically, after Beta 5, what happened was I actually ended up I left Barking Dog Studios to work at Valve basically. So
Wow. But how
yeah.
was it? Like you were going to the office?
Oh no, no,
It
actually,
was all
so I was
remote. Yeah.
it was remote. It was all remote. So basically, I was still in school. So basically, Valve allowed me to just work on Counter Strike Beta 6
Yeah.
at home uh, in Vancouver.
I
Yeah.
mean, the dream, man. Let's say
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
dream,
totally.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
totally. Yeah, yeah. Sure.
and how long it was like that you were working with them on this official capacity? Like now they are like the owners, let's say, and you are
Yeah.
actually into the project. How
Yeah.
long it was, and what happened that you left Valve? Like when that
Okay.
happened?
So I worked on Beta 6. I worked on Beta 7, and then I worked on Beta 8.
Yes.
And then so after that, what happened was I basically said, okay, this Counter Strike is done. There's nothing more we need to add to Counter Strike. So I basically stopped working on it after Beta 8, and I let Valve kind of just finish Beta, not Beta, but Counter Strike 1.0.
Right.
So basically, they took Beta 8, and then they kind of like just polished the graphics. And what they ended up doing was actually they redid a lot of the character models for Counter Strike 1.0 because they didn't really like the character models that I made. But they kept the guns though. So basically, all of
Right.
the weapons in Counter Strike Beta 8 were they look the same as in Counter Strike 1. And so basically they redid all of the character models, and they redid all of the character animations, and then they released CS 1.0. And so at that point I wasn't working on the Counter Strike project anymore. Actually, what happened at that point is I decided to do work on like a prototype for the sequel to Counter Strike. So I was working on like a secret Counter Strike project, which was supposed to be Counter Strike 2
Yeah.
basically. And
Yeah,
so
I found that
yeah,
information that
yeah,
a Counter Strike was being made, actually about 1.0, even beta, like before the 1.0, and you
yeah.
were working in Counter Strike too.
Yes, I was. So I was working on this secret project that by myself. I was just doing it by myself. It was just
Yeah,
kind of a prototype. So I was just working on it by myself. And while I was working on this, the people at Valve, they would continue to work on the future version of CS. So they would continue. So they made like CS 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, all the way up to 1.6. So all of that was done by Valve. So at that point, I think they were just adding new levels,
right.
and I don't think they added any new guns, or maybe they did. I think when they did add a new gun, it was actually just done by me. So they really liked my guns. So basically, whenever they wanted to add a new gun, they would just ask me, "Hey, we want to add this new gun for like 1.2." So
Right.
I would take time off and just work on the Counter Strike weapons for the CS
Yeah.
1.6 or 1.3.
No,
But for
well,
the most part, I was spending most of my time on this secret Counter Strike 2 project. Yeah.
it's so cool that you were in this capacity of counselor kind of stuff, right? Like it was not only a
Yeah.
developer, but your
Yeah.
opinion matter
Oh no.
in
Yeah. For
what
sure.
was
Yeah.
important for the project, which is
Mhm.
actually really really nice. Me myself, like I
Oh yeah.
really one day I want to make a video going to
Mhm.
Valve. I know it has some filters. It's like
Mhm.
really cryptic
Yeah.
stuff. I know that
Yeah.
stuff, but it will be really
Mhm.
cool because I've been really interested in
Mhm.
all these project structure that it goes with how they come with a mod and then they I don't know they release a full game from the mod and they go into this like increasing capacity into the game. Like for me it's really amazing that they have like that view and you work with
Yeah.
them. Let's say you left the project
Mhm.
after it was basically almost completed, right? You were a founder, let's say, and
Yeah,
you gave the project to Valve to basically end the
kind of like
polish, right?
yeah, because like, just maintain it basically.
Maintain it, right? That
Yeah,
is the correct word.
yeah,
Now, now that CS came out,
mhm,
years upon years of CS versions, 1.0 to 1.6. Well, source condition 0, not the most favorite, but cool.
mhm,
Global Offensive, Counter Strike
yeah,
2. We
mhm,
can say Counter Strike, it's a product that it was not only successful, it
mhm,
changed people, it changed the industry. What you did in your bedroom and with your friend, right, with Cliffy, it changed everything.
mhm.
What are your thoughts about this? Like, what are your thoughts that what you created in that computer actually changed the world? Like, that's
Mm.
really, really cool. Like, any thoughts on that? Like, any comments that you can make on this idea?
Yeah, I mean, it's an awesome feeling to be able to be a part of the game industry in that capacity and to kind of inspire other games to kind of, kind of take what was Counter Strike and just kind of improve upon it. Yeah, it's awesome, but I just feel like, you know, like when I came up with the idea of Counter Strike, to me it seemed like a pretty simple idea.
Right.
Just take counterterrorism, combine it with like Quake, and then just kind of like, you know, it didn't like to me it didn't seem like a very complicated idea. It's not like making a game like Dota or like League
Right.
of Legends, where it's just like it's really complicated. You have all these units, which it requires a lot of like game design and just like balancing. But for me, I feel like Counter Strike was such a simple idea, such a simple concept that I think if I didn't come up with it, I think someone else would have come up with it eventually. But I think I was just the first one to just come up with it. And I gotta give credit to Action Quake too. They're the ones that kind of gave me that idea for the round based like, mechanic. And I think that's a big reason why Counter Strike is so popular. It's just that teamwork aspect of it is really what kind of encourages that mentality. And that's what you
Totally.
see in esports today. You see that in esports. So it's so yeah, I'm just really cool. It's really awesome to be part of that legacy. And yeah, just but I feel like it came out at the right time, right place. So things like that. I feel like it's just more of a product of just being lucky. I think because I don't consider myself a super like talented developer. Like there's some other really great developers that I feel like they when like the games that they make, it's so complicated. I feel like, man, those guys are really talented.
Well,
But
I
yeah,
respect that. I absolutely respect that. But, well, I
yeah,
think in success, there's a mix between hard work, vision,
mm,
luck, if you
yeah,
want.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, exactly. All
what
three
you
of them is
did,
really
it's not
crucial.
only luck, in my opinion. It's
Yeah,
you packaged like
mm,
an strategy, full like design thing that makes sense. The
yeah,
magic lives in the simplicity, at least in my
mm,
opinion. I feel
yeah,
it doesn't have to
yeah,
be a
yeah,
battlefield like
yeah,
every other mod was, like respawning
yeah,
over
yeah,
and over and over again.
yeah,
The round made a difference. The round-based game made a difference because right
yeah,
now you need to think about your options and about the
mm,
consequences that are going to come with those options. Like,
mm,
if I do a certain thing and it's a mistake, I'm gonna like hurt my team, and I'm not gonna
yeah,
be alive, and that is a
mm,
mechanic into the game. Well, I am an example, let's say,
mm,
of how this game changed my life. I was a teenager. I didn't really have like a lot of options because I don't really like a lot of stuff. That is a reality. I
mm,
was about to go into cybersecurity, but
mm,
I didn't really go into it because I was not passionate about it. And I
yeah,
always liked Source Engine and Counter Strike and Left 4 Dead
mm,
sometimes, and trying to
mm,
tinker. I actually started kind of mapping games, and
mm,
then I will create videos on YouTube about just
mm,
like playing multiplayer FPS games, and then I came across with Counter Strike at the CS:GO early days,
mm.
2012, 2013, stuff like
Oh,
that, and
wow.
it changed my life. Like, if
Mm,
you didn't do what you like Counter Strike, like you
yeah.
did Counter Strike,
Mm,
I wouldn't be here. And
Oh,
it's not like a really important message because I'm not
yeah.
the only one. Now,
Mm,
the industry changed with Counter-Strike, of course. Like people was like, what
mm,
is that? Like that's magic. Like how that
mm,
works. And what about that FPS, let's
mm,
say, style, like strategy, round base, all that stuff. What are your
mhm.
thoughts? Like, what do you think about these companies or these new games that try to replicate Counter-Strike sometimes? We don't know about like a lot of games like that because sometimes they just don't come out of the oven because it's just a
Mm,
copy or it's this
yeah.
Chinese version of the thing and
Mm,
these like
yeah.
Taiwanese versions of games that are or
Mm,
Turkish that are really popular in certain
yeah.
areas, but they're copies. Like, what would you
Yeah.
say to these companies? Like, let's say an advice like don't copy, make your own thing. What is your
Yeah.
take on this?
Yeah, it's a really good point because I think around 2006 or 2007, we started seeing so many. Because actually, at the time, I was actually working in Korea. So when I
All
was
right.
in Korea, I saw like 20 or like it was like 20 different games that were really very similar to Counter-Strike.
Right.
So like games like Sudden Attack, Crossfire, like there was a ton others, but a few of them became big, like
Right.
Sudden Attack and Crossfire. They were huge in Asia, like in China and that kind of thing. And so they kind of took the formula of Counter-Strike and they kind of modify it for the Asian audience, and they became really popular. But there was a lot of other games, like there was like so many like that didn't really find as much success. And I think that's basically what these companies are kind of interested in doing.
Right.
It's like, for them, it's kind of like a gamble. They see something that's established. They see really like this is awesome. We can put our own spin on it, and the key for them is to make it different enough from Counter-Strike that it can convince other people to come try their game, but at the same time still have that same magic feeling of Counter-Strike. So I mean, you kind of like some games have found success in this kind of like methodology, like for example Crossfire or Sudden Attack, and you see this in every type of genre that becomes big. Like for
Yeah.
example, when PUBG became big, there were so many clones of PUBG, right? After that,
Battle
I mean,
royales
it,
and stuff,
there
right? King
was
of the
yeah,
Hill
battle
stuff.
royales, exactly. There's so many of them, but I mean, the only one that really kind of was able to maintain their puppet, it was like Call of Duty Warzone. It's because Call of
Yeah.
Duty Warzone is so fucking polished. It looks so nice, and they were able to capture that same feeling of the PUBG.
Right.
And so yeah, I mean, it kind of happens with every popular game. Like, there's always going to be copycats, and I think I think I guess my biggest advice would be just to try to find what made that original game special,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you have to add something different to your game that is gonna convince other players to try something different. Because if your game is too similar to the original game, then
Right.
why are people gonna exactly? There's no reason for another person to change game. And I think that's one of the advantages Counter Strike had was when it was the first game to market, we already had this huge player base, and so in order for us to lose our player base, yeah, it was very difficult for other games to kind of attract their players because they became so used to Counter Strike, and they
Yeah.
became so used to they had their friends playing Counter Strike. So like one of the big reasons for me not to play another game is because my friends are playing this game. I don't want to play this game because I don't know anybody on that game. So I'm gonna stick with this game, even though this game is not as good as that new game. I'm staying here because my friends are here. So it's more of
Right.
a lot of it is just because you have your community already established around an existing franchise. So that's why it's really difficult. I find it really challenging.
And as the last question,
Mhm.
do you play Counter Strike daily or not really?
Oh yeah, unfortunately no. I stopped playing Counter Strike like regularly, probably around CS 1.1, I think. Because
Right.
after that point I kind of had enough. I said, okay, this is like because I wanted to focus on just development. So basically I just spent all my time developing. So to be honest, I don't have time to play many other multiplayer games. I think the last multiplayer game I played was Battlefield 5.
Right.
Yeah, that
Right.
was like it's a long time ago, 6, 7 years ago. Yeah, and then like, but when I do play games, I usually just play quick games that I can finish in 10 or 20 hours. I mean, I think
Okay.
the last game that I really liked to play was Cyberpunk. Oh, I
Oh,
love
awesome.
Cyberpunk.
Phantom
I
Liberty. Do
love
you
that.
played it? The DLC?
I didn't have time because I haven't had time to play it, but eventually I'm gonna play that game because I love just the cyberpunk theme. I love that theme because I love watching Japanese cartoons. And
Oh,
also, I really love the game Cyberpunk. I think they did an awesome job with just the feel of it. And the city, it looks so great. I mean,
yeah.
that game was, yeah. I even played it like I played it like a month after it was first released, and people were saying, "Oh man, it's so buggy, it's so buggy."
Yeah.
But I was like, I still enjoyed it. I thought it was really. I thought I was able to finish the game. I only encountered like one weird bug, but other than that, the game was it was pretty stable for me. But I played it on PC. I think most people that were complaining were
Yeah,
playing it
on the
on the
console, it
console. Yeah.
was abysmal. I would like to know if we can play one day. Like, if I can play a CS match one day with you. Like, or
Yeah,
we can add each
sure.
other on Steam or something, or we can share a moment. Like, later on,
Okay.
of course. It doesn't have to be today,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, sure. I think that'd be cool. I'd like to play with you one day, I think. I gotta warn you though, I'm terrible. Because the last
dude.
time I played was 2 months ago, and I was at the bottom. I was like, man, I'm rusty.
Oh
Yeah,
man, it doesn't
but
matter, man.
yeah, I'll just boost on you, and then
Let's
I'll
go.
ride
Yeah, I want to
I'll
boost the
ride you.
creator of Counter Strike. Hell yeah,
Okay.
man. Hey,
Yeah.
well,
Sounds good. Yeah.
those are basically the questions that I had for you today. And I mean, I hope I wasn't too cliche. Like, for real.
No, that
I,
was awesome. That was a really great interview. We talked about a lot of stuff that I never talked about before, so
oh,
it was
okay,
great.
okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
man. I'll
Yeah.
take that.
No, that was a lot of fun, man. It was also really great to meet you, and like also hello to your audience. So is most of your audience from Mexico?
And no, actually, they're from South America, the majority of them. It's
Oh, yeah.
Argentina,
Oh,
Chile people,
mm.
Mexico as well, which is kind of central
Brazil,
NA.
Brazil.
Well, Brazil, some people, but the thing is they speak Portuguese, so they don't
Oh,
really
I
speak
see, I see.
Spanish, right? So I think
I see, I see, I see. Okay,
but I
okay.
mean, there are a lot of Brazilians as well that
Mm,
speak Spanish because like they kind of hang around with the Argentina people, which
mm.
sometimes they have like their fights, right? But
Okay, yeah.
it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Spain people, of course, like people from Spain,
Oh, oh,
from
cool.
Europe.
Well,
Yeah,
I work with a lot of people from Barcelona, and
hundred
yeah, I
percent.
love Barcelona. Barcelona's awesome. And yeah, hopefully one day we can play together, man. Maybe we can.
Absolutely, man. Like, let's
Yeah,
share each other Steam accounts on this. Of course, it's gonna be.
yeah,
I prefer it to be private because otherwise you're gonna receive 4,000 million of
yeah,
requests.
yeah.
It's gonna be
Unfortunately,
private, okay?
I had that. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it'll just be me and you. Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Well,
Sounds
this was
awesome,
a
dude.
dream, man. Let's say I
Yeah,
met one of the creators of my favorite game, and
cool.
the cool part is we shared some stories, some stuff,
Mhm.
and I
Cool.
understand that you like a lot. You know,
Mm,
even though it was technical, and I'm not an
yeah,
expert or anything
mhm,
about game
yeah,
development, I know
yeah,
some stuff, and we can keep the conversation, and that kept it fresh and incredible. And as
yeah.
a plus, what is your background? Like, what do you study?
Oh, so when I was in university, I was studying computer programming.
All right,
So basically, it taught me how to just program, C++.
awesome.
We learned a lot of different languages. So it taught me a lot of like stuff like artificial intelligence. And so I was able to kind of use that. No, actually, I didn't really use that much for Counter-Strike because
All
the
right.
hostages were pretty dumb. But anyways, yeah, I learned just software engineering programming. So
All right.
I think, yeah.
If you ever need something, if you ever need like a hand into something, into, I don't know,
Oh,
man, something that I
that's,
can do, of course, like not
oh,
programming the
oh
new
no.
Counter Strike, I believe,
Oh,
but
no, definitely. No, I would definitely I would definitely reach out for you if I need to, if I need to, like if I have a game I want to show to world or something like that. I'd be
absolutely,
cool.
man. I'm gonna be the first one, please. Like,
Okay, thank you. All right, awesome.
right?
Well, it was really nice to meet you, and yeah, and hi to your audience, and yeah,
Absolutely, and they're gonna appreciate it, and
yeah, yeah,
you will
yeah.
see a lot of good comments on it. I'm telling you.
Just a quick question. Is that an MSI dragon in your background? I see.
Yeah, it is MSI.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
cute. Yeah, I like MSI too. Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of MSI. They used to send me like some kind of prototypes for
Oh,
motherboard, certain headsets,
oh, really?
wireless mouse. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. I wish I had I wish I don't have a sponsor. I should get a sponsor,
yeah.
but I don't even have a YouTube channel, but
uh,
that's cool.
any day, man.
Anyways, Yeah. Anyways, really good talk to you, buddy. We'll talk to you next time. I'll talk to you online, and hopefully we'll play together one of these days. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Well, see you later, and
Yeah.
thank you so much, my man.
Okay, buddy. Talk to you later.
See you later, thank you. Gente, espero que les haya gustado este video. Comentarios en la parte de abajo. No los jodo más. Ha sido bastante tiempo, creo yo. A mí en lo personal quedó un poco corto el asunto, ¿no? Pero, ¿qué les interesaría saber sobre Guzmán en esta conversación que hubo, que fue extensa, fue más o menos de 3 horas? Posiblemente pueda encontrar algo. Les digo desde ya, ha habido pláticas si le gusta o no otro tipo de juegos o otro FPS, Valorant, por ejemplo, comentarios sobre la industria, etcétera. Esto es algo que les llamaría la atención. ¿Qué tema en específico? En los comentarios. Los que tengan más apoyo voy a enfocarlos para el siguiente video, el siguiente segmento posiblemente, y espero que les agrade. Nada más, me gusta el video si les ha gustado, compartirlo con sus amigos y que nos vemos. Hasta la próxima.